Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FECast, the official podcast of Friends of Eternal. I am your host, Sunyveil, and I am very excited to present this episode to you. We have 5 guests on our show today. Most of them you've heard on previous episodes. We've got Camomilk.
Hello, glad to be here.
We've got Collector.
Hello, everybody.
Linyvine.
Hello.
The infamous IlyaK.
Hello there.
And a new guest, gaonan, who makes draft videos of him drafting to Masters every month. How are you doing, gaonan?
Great, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have all of you here. Today's show is going to be all about Dark Frontier, the set released just a couple days ago. I'm really excited about it. I think that almost everyone is really excited just to see all the new cards. It seems really pushed, and we're going to be talking about as many aspects of the set as we can. First, we're going to lead off with our first impressions of the set and our favorite cards. Then we'll be talking about some brews that we've seen floating around. And then we'll talk about the decks that we feel are going to have competitive edge. We'll be going over the draft format. And finally, in the section where we give our hot takes, we're going to be sharing our picks for what's going to get nerfed first. But first, let me just take a second to plug the brand new Friends of Eternal Twitch channel. This is going to be a shared channel for any member of Friends of Eternals to stream on if they want to have a shared audience. I plan on streaming from this channel once a week in order to get a little bit extra visibility on it, and I look forward to seeing other members of the team streaming on it. So make sure you go to twitch.tv/friendsofeternal and give it a follow so you can see when other members of the team are on. I've been planning this for a while, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it turns out, because I think it'd be really cool seeing different members of the team streaming from this channel every day. Okay, let's get into everyone's first impressions and favorite cards. I'll lead off with my first impression of the set. It feels like combo is really pushed. I feel that in Constructed, we've seen the empowerment of a lot of combo decks, and the card that I've been playing the most is Glimpse the Possibilities, which is the card that costs 2 and says that all of the cards in your deck have warp, and it usually culminates in some sort of combo turn where you try to play your entire deck, or at least as much of your deck as possible, and try to win on that turn. Camomilk, how about you?
Well, I've been trying out a few new cards from this set. One of my first things I tried out was Pristine Light. I put that in a Chalice shell, which seems to work really well. You have a bunch of tiny units that stick around, and Pristine Light is the one that kills all units with power 4 or greater. And then if you attacked this turn, you draw all units from your void that died this turn. So it goes really well in that deck. Another one I've been having fun with is close to a traditional hero control, but playing Reweave in it, so I can grab cards like Champion of Order, which if it has 5 Justice and 5 Primal Influence, copies itself at the beginning of your turn and doubles its stats at the beginning of your turn. And if it comes into play shifted, it's very hard to deal with. If they don't have a sweeper, then 3 turns later, you're just attacking with 4 16/16 unblockable units.
So when you do that combo, does the copy come in shifted at the same shift state as the original one?
Honestly, I haven't pulled that off yet, so I can't confirm yet. I'll have to play it some more.
Alright, so let us know when that happened. Rob, what about you, Collector?
Get back to me.
Alright.
Let someone else go first.
Okay, Linyvine, how about you?
Alright, well, I've been doing the common. I've really liked that card, Reweave. As soon as they spoiled it, it was like, yes, I will break this card. And Reweave, if for anyone who somehow doesn't know, is a 2-drop spell. Sacrifice a unit, go through your deck for any unit of the same cost, and it comes into play shifted. And so my favorite way to use it so far has actually been in an IlyaK deck. The IlyaK deck is the card based on the 1-drop that whenever you play a spell, it gets bigger and you gain an armor. I've been using it on Crown Watch Press Gang to go out and get all the creatures in my deck, since everything in the deck costs less than 4, and it's been really good. And you know, it being a revenge unit itself, it goes back, comes back, you get all sorts of shenanigans going on with it.
Awesome. I have 2 questions for you about that. One, have you tried out Gar in the list? I've seen people Reweave for Gar in order to silence their opponent's hand.
I have not yet tried it. I have had that recommendation, but honestly I don't have any Gars at the moment, and I'm not sure I actually want to craft it.
Buy the theme deck. I mean, here's the theme deck.
Oh yeah, you probably only need 1 anyway.
Yep, but I'm saving my gold right now to play in the the event this week that happens on Tuesday, the draft event, so I'm not going to buy any cons right now.
Alright, fair enough. And the other question is, after you play a Crown Watch Press Gang, that's the card that you want to reweave the most, right? You can obviously chain Press Gangs in order to just generate a ton of value. Is there any other target at 4 that you're really looking to reweave into?
That brings me to my second favorite card in the set. I really like Linyvine Soothsayer. It's a 4-drop for a 2/4 that has flying and has Onslaught. You put 7 spells in your deck that are 0-cost spells that do 3 damage to any target, and that includes sights, that includes creatures, that includes that, and it does have warp, so it's literally not actually reducing the consistency of your deck at all because it has warp. So I actually really like that card, and being able, I can sack the Crown Watch, get Linyvine into play, or I can actually reverb that card and go get Crown Watch Press Gang. So it's actually really good, and that was the only 4-drop that I thought was worth it in that deck, and it really does synergize well, especially if you manage to play an Alessi before you start throwing out those spells.
Alright, that brings me on to another question. Did you ever play Birthing Pod in Magic?
Yes, I did. That's why I was excited for this card.
Yeah, I loved Birthing Pod too. I actually top-8'd an SCG Open with it. That was a long time ago. Alright, awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. Ilya, what are you up to?
So, I've taken the less spectacular route to start the set, and I've been on Argenport midrange because of Platemaker, and going back to my Felon roots, with Felon Berserk, and playing some Koku Felon as well. So, Insignia's obviously huge for Felon, and Platemaker, I think, puts Argenport midrange in the map.
Yeah, it's a Minotaur, so Tavrod can go and get it. Alright, how about you, Gaonan?
For me, I have been, just reviewing the cards in the set. For Limited, with me being more draft focused, I really need to understand what commons and uncommons are out there. I also have been watching others draft, and then I actually got my first draft in last night. I've been a little busy, and I went 7-1. I was super impressed. Format seems really fun. I think Twist is a great new mechanic for Limited because you're getting repeatable card-like effects, which is great. Which brings me to one of my favorite cards, which is Lightning Sprite, which is a 4-cost primal 1/4 flyer that you can pay 1 and draw a card and then discard a card. So it can be a tower top patrol when you're on the defense, it can draw you extra cards, and then it can get aggressive when needed to speed up that clock. So it's great.
Yeah, that card is very impressive. Anything that has flying and Twist is really scary because it can get in there for so much damage. And we'll talk more about Twist later in the limited segment of this show. Alright, Collector, what have you been up to?
I've mainly been up to draft. Not much time for Constructed right now, although I am excited to try things like a Go Wide deck using that new 2-drop, the 3/2 that you pay 3 Twisted and then give your team +1/+0 and Deadly. I think that could really help you push through damage in some kind of Go Wide deck.
Huh, I don't know if that card's existing.
Cabal Repeater.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, that one. Right. Okay. I was trying to think of some sort of shift card. Okay, cool. Have you found any bad combo decks in Limited?
Combo decks in Limited? Not yet.
Alright, well I look forward to hearing your reports on that. Alright, let's talk about some of the brews that have popped up with the release of this set, and just in the last week. We mentioned that this set is a lot more combo friendly than anything we've seen before, and boy is it combo friendly. But first, let's talk about that 50 power Diogo Excavator deck that popped up in this past week before the set release. If you haven't seen this deck, you're playing 50 power, and then you have the Diogo Invoke the Waystones combo. So basically the only non-power cards in the deck are merchants, so you can find the Diogo in the market really consistently, then you can find the Celestial Omen in the market really consistently. Go get the Destiny Invoke the Waystones, play out your entire deck, and then play Merchant for Stonescar Excavator, which domes your opponent for a good 25 to 30 damage. So this is the most consistent version of the Diogo combo deck that we've seen, and it's actually competitive. I don't think that I could have said that about other Diogo combo decks we've seen, but this one is scary. Anyone have any thoughts on this deck?
What happens when you draw all your Invoke the Waystones before you get to go get Diogo?
You absolutely lose. There are a few ways that you can absolutely lose. If someone, for example, you treacheries your Diogo, or actually, I guess, silences it in your hand, then you absolutely. And if you draw both Invoke the Waystones, then you're also.
So it's bad.
I wouldn't say it's bad. I'm just saying that things can go wrong.
I know. I'm only joking. I'm just not a huge fan of that kind of combo deck because it is very weak.
Well, in any case, I think this deck is nonsense. I'm happy to have a new set come out and perhaps push that deck aside because I don't think it is very compelling gameplay. I think it's pretty... The games all look the same, essentially. It's just very consistent, and you don't make any real decisions. Alright, so, decks that Dark Frontier have enabled include decks like Praxis Warp Storm. This is a deck that I was playing on my stream a lot last night. Basically what you do, this is a deck that I think Kamado came up with. I don't know if he was the first one to put these two cards together, but he's the person that I got the idea from, where you have a Workshop Forge and you play Glimpse the Possibilities. So Workshop Forge says that all cards with Warp in your deck cost 2 less, and then Glimpse the Possibility gives all cards in your deck Warp. So every card is playable off the top of your deck and it costs 2 less. If everything in your deck costs 2 or less, it's all free. And if you do have anything that's more expensive, a second or third Workshop Forge will make it cost basically free. So one issue with Glimpse the Possibilities is that if you hit 2 power in a row, you're stuck. But one way I was able to get around that is by playing a lot of standards and monuments, which turn into cards, which become free once you have the Workshop Forge out. And then you can just play 30, 40 cards off the top of your deck on the same turn. What do you guys think about this deck?
So I didn't know that it existed until yesterday when you posted it, and then I started playing it. The one problem that I've had with particularly the version that you shared yesterday that only ran 8 merchants, unlike Kamado who runs 20, is that it happens way more often that you hit cards that you just can't play because you're running the man lands from Magic, which is what I call them, the one that become 5-drop creatures like the 4/1 haste. The problem is if you hit those off the top multiple times, those are going to cost 3. You're going to run out of mana really quick. I found that the only real reliable way to go off is if you have to have more than one workshop on, and I don't like that because that's 10 mana. You're likely going to die before you ever get to that.
So I have not yet played the deck, but just watching it on your stream, Sonny, it looked like the ass. Right now, I was thinking if it might not be better to actually go Fire Time Shadow, and that instead of going strategize, you go with the deck, and then you can replace some of the monuments with Cabal Tactics. So that's just a thought there. Beyond that, the deck looked a lot of fun. I think it's a decent tier 2 deck, and Glimpse the Possibilities, Praxis Warp Storm really has me excited because I hope we'll get to see that deck do some interesting things. I really love how it's constructed. The whole archetype just seems really fun, and Storm, in Eternal, the Madmen at Direwolf, they did it. Really excited about quote-unquote Storm having a place in our metagame. I think the playstyle is very cool, but I hope the UI gets some fixes so you don't need to be a StarCraft APM god just to play the...
So you mentioned Cull the deck. That's actually really interesting. The issue is that you don't have the appropriate cargo in order to get all the right factions, but you're right. Cabal Tactic plus Cull the deck seems really appealing for what that deck's trying to do. Now I have to ask you, Ilya, it's a lot of fun to play. There's no question about that. But do you really want a deck that is as uninteractive as this deck in your competitive metagame?
I mean, you have Chainbreak, for example, which is, I want to just ramp up and slam a turn 4 to loot on you. You have Reanimator, which is also, hey, turn 5, I'm going to bring back the world and completely dominate you unless you have specific Void Hate. There are ways to interact with the Praxis Warp Storm. Basically, you gotta hit the Glimpse the Possibilities, or you have to have Vision of Austerity for the Workshop Forge and Pressure to actually end the game before the Warp Storm builds up a big board and an obelisk. I think there are enough points of interaction with the deck, but you do have to play some slightly out of the way cards. I think you do need to play Negate or the new Royal Decree, some form of disruption that actually tries to go after the combo rather than kill them, because turn 6 is pretty quick go off.
Yeah, I think we're seeing Royal Decree in a lot more lists. I think that is going to be a necessary market card, or at least a very strong consideration for a market card. All right, let's talk about some of these Reweaves. Reweave is a very exciting card. Camomilk, why don't you tell us about this Auric Reclaimer deck?
Sure. So Auric Reclaimer is the one that I believe it's the 2-cost shadow creature.
Yes.
And it also has Shift 6, and it has the ability that when you shift it, you play a relic weapon that's equal in size to the largest relic weapon in your void. So the idea with this deck is to discard cards much like Reanimator, except instead of reanimating units, you're reanimating a Sword of the Sky King, the 8/8 legendary relic weapon. And with Reweave, you can do this as early as turn 3. All you need to do is discard a Sword of the Side Sky King, play any 2-drop, and then reweave it into this card so that it enters shifted and it plays an 8/8 relic weapon. Very strong early play.
Yeah, conveniently, there are a lot of 2-drops that discard cards, right? So that makes it so that you could back alley Delinquent, and then you can even sabotage your opponent and then reweave the back alley Delinquent into this Auric Reclaimer. Something that caught me off guard is that if something comes into play shifted, that gets the shift effect. I thought that when you pay the shift cost, but no, apparently, if you reweave or remembrance an Auric Reclaimer, its shift effect happened. So how good do you think this deck is?
I hate this deck with a burning passion, because that shift cost might as well cost 99 for all intents and purposes. I hate reweave. Is absolute nonsense because it's just a way to cheat costs to oblivion. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you look at Grasping at Shadows, it costs 5. So you're paying 2 to discard Avara, and you're paying 5 for the Grasping. You're not getting much coupon on power on the actual unit, so much as paying it over multiple turns. In contrast, the whole shift happening when the unit is shifted but not paying its shift cost is, I think, completely ridiculous, because you're saying Sword of Sky King as early as turn 3. You actually can get it as early as turn 2. Turn 1 Chairman's Contract, you mill Auric Reclaimer and Sword of Sky King, and turn 2, you play a Shadow Sigil and cast Remembrance on the Auric Reclaimer, and you have a turn 2 Sword of the Sky King. If
Yeah,
that's
that
not
seems
complete and
really
utter
likely. Milling the exact 2 cards you need for the combo.
Sure, you know, obvious, but the whole mechanic here, the amount of power you can cheat and how little interaction there actually is for this, I think is complete nonsense. Like, if you go back to the Answer the Call days, it was around 1 week before Direwolf said, okay, this card is far too high variance, it's far too swingy, play pattern, yada yada. The reweave and the whole shift mechanic takes that up to 11, because you can't even interact with the Void, except for Null Blade. So with Reanimator, you can at least play Vanquisher's Blade and Adjudicator's Gavel and say, you actually cannot access your Void, you cannot do your thing until you deal with this card. With Reweave, it doesn't actually play the Sword of Sky King from your Void. Auric Reclaimer just looks at your Void. So you can't even interact with it on the Void hate.
That's
so
actually, that's a really good point. I mean, you'd have to use something like Lumen Reclaimer in order to disrupt it in that way. So,
right,
yeah, I mean,
right.
We'll get into this when we talk about our hot takes. I think a lot of us are looking closely at these reweave decks, and we'll talk more about what we think is going to change about it.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing in the comment to that?
Yeah.
So, yes, IlyaK's points are correct. It is a lot harder to interact with the turn 3 8/8 weapon, which actually happens very consistently, I will give it that. But there are 1-drop spells that kill the 8/8 weapon. It's not like it has Aegis. It's not like it has any sort of protection at all. So, I mean, it's not nearly as unbeatable as putting Vara into play from your Void and then just filling up your entire market. There's no way to interact with it. I mean, filling up your entire board. There's no way to interact with that.
That's true. I have 2 thoughts about this. One is that it doesn't have the big combo finish that Reanimator has of building a huge board and drawing a ton of cards the turn that goes off. And the other thing is that it's doing something unfair, but then it has to win in a very fair way. Attacking someone for, 3 or 4 turns with a relic weapon is something that's like very disruptible. It's not like drawing a ton of cards with Azendel and getting back tons of units every time you play a unit. So it is big, flashy, consistent, powerful, but I don't think I think the power level of the payoff is more appropriate to the cost than it might initially seem.
Yeah, exactly. But all right, what's on the next deck? What's the next deck we want to talk about?
Yeah,
what about the Skycrag Mid Brew?
Yeah, who's is that?
That's me.
All right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this Skycrag mid deck?
So I definitely don't have the credentials of you all instructed, so take this with a grain of salt. But
This is
I've
the
been
brew
having
section after all.
Yes. So I've been having success with Eclipse Dragon, surprise, surprise, great card, and being able to hold up cards like Unseal, Ice Bolt, burn them all from my market, and just hitting my opponent for a ton, and being able to hold up counters for when they try and do these combo plays with Glimpse the Possibilities and things like that has been pretty effective for me. I'm sitting around, rank 200, so it's nothing special, but it's been fun and consistent. I'm playing 8 Merchants and playing Peaks and Zoe and Hurler, so it's been pretty consistent for me. I don't think it's anything new or special, controversial, but I really do like Eclipse Dragon and think it's a great card from the set.
Yeah, going into the set, Eclipse Dragon had my pick for the best card in the set. That may have changed with how much I've seen combo dominate, but I think that the plan of Eclipse Dragon plus holding up power or being granted power on the opponent's turn in order to protect it and or disrupt, I think that's going to be a pretty big player going forward. So even if it's not the current iteration you have now, I think that Eclipse Dragon plus disruption is going to be something that we're going to see a lot of. Alright, Mono Primal Midrange. Who can tell me about this deck?
That was me. So it's actually one of the first things I built going into the new set was that I really liked Rost, the Walking Glacier. I know that Sunyveil's not terribly impressed with this card for some reason, but it's 5 for a 7/7 with Overwhelm and Warp, and then it has the Entomb effect that you play it again. The same creature too, that's important. At first when I saw it, I thought that it would play a copy of Ross, and it wouldn't gain any of the effects that you gave it, but being able to savagery it, give it killer, and then it comes back with killer is really, really, really powerful. And I think that it's really strong.
And just to be clear, it comes back with shift, so it's going to be able to attack unblockable in a few turns. It doesn't just come back.
Yeah, you're right. And one of the reasons, other things that I've been doing with this deck is that Dusk Raider giving it Berserk, and then eventually getting unblockable, also really.
I also want to say that when you have him out, you can Palace, give it Berserk, and it will get it even if it's shifted.
Yep, that's correct. Anything that affects the whole board will affect shifted units as well. But the other really nice mechanic that I found out in mine was that I liked Ice Bolt. It's the 2 damage burn spell that does 7 damage to any unit and lets them play a land from their deck depleted. I know that seems like a really bad payoff, giving them extra power to let them ramp, but later in the game, that card has actually proved really, really good against Praxis midrange decks because it allows me to deal with any card in their deck, as well as, all they get is another land, which they've already got plenty of.
Yeah, I think the direct comparison here is Path to Exile from MTG, which has a similar effect. That card only costs 1, so there is a bit of a difference there. But yeah, nevertheless, we're talking about a cross-format card that continues to see play in Magic's more powerful formats, and considering how many cards there are there, that just means that that type of effect is very, very powerful.
That, and with Eternal, the power base is a little bit higher end than Magic, so costing 1 in Magic could really realistically be the same as costing 1, 2, or 3 in Eternal because it's a mid-range game. So realistically, it is very comparable to Path of Exile.
Yeah, not too many extremely powerful fast spells costing 2. Alright, let's talk about some competitive decks. I've done some playing on ladder with this Praxis Warp Storm, and it seems like it's pretty powerful. I actually saw that in a tweet that the ETS today has more combo decks than it does aggro decks, so clearly people are on some sort of combo decks. Now, whether they're on Praxis Warp Storm or other combo decks, I'm not sure, but the point being, combo seems to be competitive, but I'll leave this section to you guys who have probably tried playing more ranked than I have.
I will say, as niche as it seems, I do believe that the Auric Reclaimer Reweave deck is way too good. In a sense, I do agree with IlyaK because I've been playing that on the ladder since yesterday, and I have only dropped 2 games. And the only games that I've lost were to other meme decks. Like I lost to Diogo into Waystone combo, but I'm beating all the popular decks. So I'm beating Praxis Pledge, I'm beating Stonescar Midrange. Stonescar Midrange, I dropped that on turn 3. I've seen every single one of them concede. They're like, yep, I can't beat that on turn 3.
Good, great. Direwolf, you guys gutted Answer the Call because turn 4 Answer the Call off bullet into Aria was too swingy. In the meantime, hello, turn 3 Sword of the Sky King isn't swingy.
Whoa, hold your horses there, Ilya. Hi, what's up? It's editing, Sunyveil. In this section, Ilya went on to say some things that I don't feel like publishing, so we're just gonna skip ahead a little. Because we're gonna cut this section out, Ilya.
Okay.
I understand about the Answer the Call. And that's a good point. They did nerf the Answer the Call really quickly after the card came out because turn 4 into Ikaria, that was really swinging. The problem, though, is that whole deck did the same thing. It could have been Ikaria, it could be Caleb, it did that. And those cards do win the game. They don't actually, set up you to win the game in 4 turns. See, you playing an 8/8 weapon realistically does not win you the game. Yes, it's hard to deal with, but it does not let you win the game. You have to be able to hit them in the face 4 times with that card to do enough to lethal. And that's ignoring any units they play, ignoring any relic removal they might have. So it's actually really, really fair.
So the bottom line is, we think that this Sword of the Sky King Reanimator deck is the real deal. It's up there as far as competitive decks.
Yes, and whether it's tier 1 or tier 2, I'm not too sure, but it is really scary.
All right, what other decks have we seen, or do you guys think are capable of competing with that type of power level?
One thing that I've noticed is that if they get to vision the weapon that the Auric Reclaimer gets to you, it slows your game down a lot.
Okay,
because you can no longer play that card. You have to now rely on being able to hard cast Sword of the Sky King, so it slows game down.
Yeah, that seems like that's a gigantic thorn in the side. So some sort of Huru deck is probably well positioned against that type of combo deck. And also the other combo decks that we might see, such as Praxis Warp or Invoke the Waystones, Huru has the tools to deal with that because an Unseal is very powerful against both of those decks as well.
I think Huru is another deck that everyone should look at. It was competitive before the set came out, and I think that it's just, if not better, as powerful than as it was before. Because now you have a whole lot of new tools that you could run in a Praxis deck as flex spots, like Ice Bolt. You could also run Pristine Light. There's lots of really nice cards that came out of the set that I think will really give an edge to Huru.
Oh yeah, what about Svetya's Sanctum?
I'm not a fan of that card. I think it's way too memey.
It does sound memey on its first, but put it this way. If you go Svetya's Sanctum on turn 5, I know, but then you go Palace, you're playing 2 5-cost spells and a 3-cost spell. That gives you 2 5/5s and a 3/3 before the buffs of Withstand and Sacrifice.
Doesn't Sack the City actually cost 6?
No, it costs 5.
Oh, it is 5?
It is 5. So you're talking about things like Howling Peak is a little less impressive, but it means the mirror image is at least getting you a 3/5 and a 3/7 until the start of your next turn when they come 3. The gun down gets you a 5/5, but basically Svetya's Sanctum with Palace is a big game. And Huru Control, you're talking about playing Honor of Claws, that's 4 power, but you don't actually affect the board. Well, now you get a 4/4. I think the card needs specific decks to do well in, but I think it's more than a me.
Yeah, I think that it would fit pretty well in Huru Control. Camomilk, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to say on the topic of the Huru deck that the more aggressive Huru decks, I think, have a good option in Huru Pacifier that shuts down weapons, so it shuts down this weapon reanimator strategy, and it also plays really nicely alongside Pristine Light because you can kill all the 4 power units and it itself has 3 power.
That's a good point. And if you're playing the aggressive Huru decks, there's a good chance that you could attack. Not that you're actually losing much to the Pristine Light, but say you have a Shelter Wing Rider or whatever, you can attack and then Pristine Light to get it back.
Yeah, Pristine Light is easily probably the biggest upgrade that I think Huru got. And I think, although I've tried playing Pristine Light in a lot of different decks, and I've never got to a point where I got to go do really not cool things with it, except once, and I play it as a market card in the IlyaK deck that I was referring to, and it has come into play in that deck several times, because what I did was I wiped their 3 or 4 big dudes, and then I also killed my own IlyaK, I killed my own student, and then they came right back, and it was really gross.
Yeah, getting a big IlyaK that costs 1 is a pretty big deal. Any other decks that we think we've talked about, the Reweave decks and also Huru, any other strategies that we think are still very well positioned from previous or got big upgrades?
I think, well, I'm not a huge fan of FJS, but it does seem that one of our team members the other day was having really good luck with the FJS list on the ladder, just with Pristine Light being the only new card that I'm aware of.
Alright. Pristine Light in a control deck doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because usually if you're playing control and your opponent has 1 large unit that you haven't answered, then you're kind of in trouble. And if they have more than 1, well, yeah, I guess you can Pristine Light, but you can also just Harsh Rule, and that gets pretty good value too. I don't see tons of positions where having Pristine Light over Vanquish makes a ton of sense in a control deck where you're not playing your own units that dodge it.
The reason I think that it makes a big deal is that, for instance, Praxis Pledge plays a lot of units that have over 4 power, and they'll have more than 1 almost every time. And I think that being able to Pristine Light, which kills your own Rizon, but then you get it back and get another activation on it, clearly a good card. Also, it could make Brel really good, because if you do it and then get Brel back and be able to use Brel's ability again, also quite strong, especially where the weapon that it creates ignores the effect. So if you're clearing their board, having a huge weapon that has Warcry and then making it bigger, that there's lots of potential there in FGS.
There's also things like after you kill Zalchi, you can kill all the dragons.
Yeah, okay.
That's true.
Alright, you heard it here first. FJS, probably still a good deck. I know, shocker to a lot of people. Nobody has brought this up elsewhere, but FJS probably still a good. Okay, let's talk about drafting. So I've drafted a lot of this set. I've had a good time. How many drafts have I done? I think I've done around 9 drafts of this format. Overall, it feels really aggressive compared to the last format, and I think that there's a gigantic emphasis on power efficiency. The game seemed to be decided by the small things, the way you put together your cards and effects that cost small amounts of power, as opposed to a big 5-drop or a big 6-drop that dominates the game. And I really like that, because I think that putting together that puzzle of power is really interesting and is something that, well, there are a lot of ways to construct your game plan, and based on how you do it, you're either going to get rewarded or punished. One other thing I noticed is that Onslaught is really easy to turn in. With all these shift cards, your opponent frequently has units that don't attack or block for a while, so if you just have a 2-drop, you can get in there once or twice, and I think that makes 2-drops in this format much better than they have been in previous formats. I think even cards like Pyroadept are pretty useful because, yes, it dies to everything, but a lot of the times there's nothing on the board the first couple turns you play it because your opponent's shifting stuff in. And the final initial observation I have about the format is, holy cow, is there a ton of warp. From small effects like, shoot, is it called Heist? It says give a unit or weapon in your hand +1/+1 that has warp, that costs 1, to big effects like the Cloud Snake Matriarch. I think I have the name of that card right, but I'm not sure. The 5/4 flyer that draws a card when you warp it. There are just so many warp effects. So make sure that you're hitting your power drops so that you can warp the cards off the top of your deck. What have you noticed?
Something I've noticed as well is just the prevalence of warp as well as scout in this set. There's also a ton of scout cards in the draft packs as well as in the new set. And a nice thing about warp and scout together is they both help you hit those power drops and just have consistent draw.
Yeah, assuming that you can play the warp card to begin with. I mean, if you're stuck on, if you're stuck on 3 and you see a warp card that costs 4, it's just the worst feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Gaonan, I know that you've been watching a lot of streams on Draft. What are your initial thoughts about this format?
I have a lot of similar thoughts to you as far as you're really rewarded for being aggressive because of cards, because of the onslaught mechanic. It just really incentivizes you to be attacking. One of the sleeper cards, I think, in this set is Cobalt Coin. That card is insane. Being able to give one of your opponents reckless so that they have to attack into you can give you a way to easily deal with your opponent, most problematic unit, and then clears the way for you to keep on attacking. What I really like about that coin cycle, not that you would do this with all the coins, but I think with Cobalt Coin in particular, is you can splash for this card. You're obviously diluting your power base a little bit, but it doesn't cost you anything you don't have to have your primal influence to play this card. You don't have to be playing other primal cards to play this card. You can simply just have this card in your deck and use it as a removal spell, essentially. I did that to great effect in my last draft. I was a Xenon base, and then I splashed primal for 2 Cobalt Coins and 2 Lightning Strike, and it was great.
That's a really interesting way of using it, unlike the standards or the monuments where you had to have the influence prior to playing the card. You're absolutely right. You can play coins in off-faction decks, and then they continue to provide the influence, and that's also a big deal. So that's a really creative use of the coins. I hadn't even thought about that, so thanks for bringing that up.
Other things that I think are super exciting in this format is just the balance between Shift and Onslaught. Shift gives you a lot of interesting decision points as far as, do I want to play this unit earlier? Like, there are kind of multiple modes of Shift, where one, you're playing big fatties earlier, like the 7-cost primal guy that you can shift for 5, or the 6 time worm that you can shift for 4. Is it better for me to shift this and guarantee that I get it on the turn that it could attack, or is it better for me to, am I going to curve out to that higher level of power? And then there's also these other flavors of Shift that are more situational, things like, I can't think of the name of the Yeti, but it's a 2/2 for 2 that you can shift for 6 that stuns 2 guys as long as the guy is shifted. So I think Shift is really interesting, especially when you pair it with Onslaught and the fact that you want to be aggressive. So your point earlier about having these wide open boards where you can keep attacking, you got to be careful about how you're using Shift. And then Twist is really good, and it's made a lot of fringe playable cards playable. I don't know how memey this is or if it's really true if people are putting Worn Shield in their draft decks now, but the fact that you have this mechanic that is giving you a card-like effect just because your unit has more health, and that it's making these other cards playable is really...
Yeah, Worn Shield is 3 more twists. I know that Kazandrith got 7 wins with a double Worn Shield deck, and that is crazy. Like, who would have ever thought? There's been a joke going around that for this set's limited format, they took a look at some cards that are utterly unplayable, like Worn Shield. What are other cards that are just like totally unplayable and limited?
Snowfort. I got blown out for that one last night.
Yes. That are just really bad and limited. And they're like, okay, how can we make these cards really, really good? And there we have it. Just you getting 3 more activations off of a twist card. And I think all of these mechanics, twist, shift, maybe not so much onslaught, but using the coins in creative ways, I think it gives the player a lot of flexibility in how they're going to play out their game. Like, you have all these alternate costs that you can pay, so it's not just, oh, I'm going to curve, 3, 4, 5 or whatever. You have to plan out whether you're going to say, okay, I'm either going to play this card for 2 this turn, or it's going to cost 3 later, or something like that. Like, I can play this card for 2 here, but it won't affect the board for a few turns because I have to shift it. And then also, I have this unit with something that costs, with a twist cost of 2. How am I going to fit that twist 2 in? Like, am I going to twist this in addition to shifting something new, or am I just going to spend this turn playing a 5-drop? I think that there are a lot of questions that the player has to answer as they're playing the game as to how they're going to spend their power, and I think that leads to a really good draft format. At least that's how I've been feeling about it.
I fully agree. I had a few drafts really like Onslaught. I also got a chance to play with the new luring Digimolok, that 7/6 overwhelm for 10 that costs 3 if you have 7 attack from the board. Card might actually make constructed play in Overwhelm, like Elysian midrange, which I also think can play Cobalt Coin and Construct. So, draft format, a lot of fun. I blew, 75,000 gold just buying packs on day 1, just like that. I'm down to 3,000. But draft format is a lot of fun. I think it might be the most fun format since step 1. So, aggression, lots of ways to choose how to play out the game. My one lament is, where are all the combat tricks? The curated packs are atrocious, but format seems to be really fun.
Yeah, let's talk about the curated packs. I don't know about you, but when packs 2 and 3 come around, I'm just hoping to get something playable. Like, I think a lot of the time, Iron Hook is like the 5th best card in a pack that I open, and that is really scary because I don't want to be playing Iron Hooks. I'm just looking for the Pyro Adepts or the Argentpart Soldiers, or just anything that can attack and block, or something like Gundown that can remove a unit. Anything like that, I'm happy to get out of the curated packs, because I think their power is so much lower than set 6 packs, which are really going to carry you through this draft. Do you guys have the same feeling about this?
Yes. I feel very similar. I think, we talked about some of these cards that add health to your units that are... I think those are the best things you're getting in packs 2 and 3, along with some okay removal. But cards like Refresh are reasonably playable in this format. But yes, they have definitely made the set 6 pack way more powerful, and the curated packs be like the worst supporting cast you've ever had. But yes, you just need to find a few cards in those packs to make your deck come together.
Alright, so while you're drafting, do you have any strategies that you're going on? Any set synergies that you're trying to capitalize on? For me, so far, I've seen 3 main synergies. There's the Scout Matters, which is often Skycrag, some sort of aggressive deck. There is Twist, which is often Xenon, which benefits from all these plus health cards so that you can twist multiple times. And then there's also some sort of shift/onslaught deck where you're just attacking, and I think this rewards flyers. You can play this in a lot of factions, I think. It rewards flyers and it rewards shift cards because those are unblockable, which guarantee you an attack. Are there any other synergies that you guys are noticing that you're trying to draft towards?
I mean, I think that there's definitely a go wide theme in time. Like, you have Horn of Plenty, which is a 5 cost. I believe it's double time or single time.
Single time.
Single time. At common, your units get +1/+1. It is a Ghetto Xenon Obelisk. At Common. Wow. There's
It's
also the primal quote unquote mythic uncommons, Cloud Snake Matriarch, and is it Frost Elemental? That's just a 3/3 flyer for 3 uncommon. So there's the go wide, as I said, and yeah, beyond that, it's basically just attack, attack, attack. But I'm just sad that we don't have the finest hours, the rapid shots, the big combat tricks that really, give you this high up-tempo flavor. And we also don't have the step 1 staples. We don't have Vodacon staff. We don't have Black Art Sidearm. No, that's why Ranger. No Awakened Students. No Karmic Guardians. I was hoping we'd see those. No such.
And as far as tricks go, the warp +3/+3 ready your unit thing has been really strong for me.
Yeah, that one's really good. I can't remember the name of it, but you get endurance as well that turn?
I think it just readies. I don't think it gives endurance.
I'm pretty sure you get endurance because I've popped off a stun with that one.
Yeah,
it's high alert. And yeah, you're right, it does give endurance.
Yeah. So one thing that I've mentioned is that the games are decided by a combination of cheap effects, not big cards. So there are a bunch of powerful, expensive cards, and there's also just like a bunch of expensive cards at common, and I just don't think that they're really playable. I think that if you're building a deck in this draft format, you really want to be making use of cheap effects that are repeatable, perhaps, like Twist, or have synergies or unblockable, like with Shift or something like that, rather than trying to go big in this format. I think that you really want to use the cheap effects to your advantage, and that way you can go, like, if you have an opponent that is playing something big, you can just go around them, or you can go over them, or you can grind them out once you've reached a board stall.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. I think going wide is way better than going tall. Like Ilya mentioned, there's Horn of Plenty for your time decks to help you with this go wide strategy, which also enables you to twist more. So like you said, you can grind people out at the end and it feels really good. And then you have these random shift cards to just finish the game for you if you need to get a few more points of damage in. I find that tiny flyers are very reasonable in this format because of cards like Horn of Plenty and just other, twist flyers and things like that are very good about chipping in damage and finishing out game for you. So those are all, I agree. I don't think you should try and go big in this format. I don't think there are enough good big payoffs.
So there are two thoughts that I have on that I agree with. The flyers, the small flyers are very good. One, because it enables you to trigger Onslaught again and again and again, and you don't have to worry about being stonewalled so much. And I think that's, it's like not too difficult to achieve Onslaught, but like being guaranteed it, I think is really nice. And the other thing is that life total is at a huge premium in this set. I've chump blocked far earlier than I would have in other sets just because there's so much evasion, whether it be some sort of twist thing that is going to ping me to death, or units coming off of shift at some point. There's also like the phase out card that gives a card shift, so that deletes it for a few turns, but it's going to come back and have unblockable. So time is really of the essence, and you might have to throw down that chump block much earlier than you would in other formats in order to preserve your life total. All right, you have a question, Linyvine?
Yeah, because so they're doing their test tournament this weekend, this week, it's Tuesday, that insists on it's doing a seal the first time, and I'm curious what you guys think what's going to change between the draft format and the sealed format, if the strategy of making your deck is any different.
Well, first of all, thanks for bringing that up, because this is a show all about Dark Frontier today. But there is big news coming up. We're the ECQ playoff. I guess it's not technically an ECQ, but the Masters Challenge for draft is actually going to be a sealed event, and we're doing a test run this coming week on Tuesday and Thursday, and we're going to have a big tournament that's sealed, and that's really interesting. I personally am not a huge fan of sealed because I feel like the synergies are too diluted, especially since, if I recall correctly, we're getting a bunch of packs from different sets. Like, I think sealed with one set makes a lot of sense because then the synergies aren't quite so diluted, but this way it just, I don't know, I could be wrong, but like, whenever I play 8-pack sealed in Eternal, I always feel like my decks fall short. I have to do something really desperate, like play 3 factions or play really bad cards, and then when that doesn't come together during the games, it's really disappointing.
I think the biggest difference you'll have, Sunny, is that you're not gonna really be, like Sunny said, it's diluted because you've got packs from all these different sets, and so some of these strategies that we're talking about that are more prevalent in Dark Frontier won't really shine as much, and I think really in Sealed it's just gonna be about throwing good stuff together. I'm cautiously optimistic for how Sealed is gonna feel and, making that lead up to a qualifier for a cutoff point. But yeah, I think mostly you're just going to be throwing good cards together.
I think that, one thing about the pack choices is it's not as random as you guys are implying. It's actually 4 packs of Dark Frontier, and then they're giving you 2 of not Defiance, I don't think. The 2 that are most prevalent in draft. I think it's Omens of the Past and one other one. Maybe it is Defiance, I'm not sure. But it does look interesting, and it's not random, like I said. It's just 3 sets. They're giving you mostly Dark Frontier and then a splash of the other 2 sets.
Yeah, I would rather see 8 packs of all of the same set. But if you happen to do well on those, there's something really exciting waiting for you, and that is Synchronous Draft. Yeah, the one thing that was missing from Eternal, in my opinion, as far as Limited goes, is you will get to draft with other people in the top 16 of the test tournament and the top 8 of the Masters Challenge, and that looks amazing. Hey, what's up? Editing Sunyveil here. Just a quick clarification. It's actually the top 64 of the Draft Showdown will be Synchronous Draft. So if you make the top 64, you'll be put into a synchronous draft in which if you win, you'll be put onto a second draft. So there are going to be 8 winners from the 64 players, and then those 8 are going to be put into the top 8 draft for 1 slot at an invite to Worlds. Okay, carry on. I imagine that they're going to try to implement this in future tournaments, and I can't wait to see competitive drafting. That just sounds...
That is kind of cool. I was also wishing they had added that instead of... I wish that we'd have that instead of what we currently have that they call drafting. I'm not a fan of...
Okay, so we're competitive players. We might like that type of draft better, the synchronous draft as opposed to asynchronous draft, which it currently is. But for most people, being able to spend however they long on a pick or go away and come back, I think it makes a lot of sense and leads to a better experience. It might not be the best for tournaments, but I definitely think it's the best for the way the client... Anyway, so we have some really exciting limited tournaments coming up. I'm really looking forward to that. And if you want to hear more on my thoughts on limited, I'm going to be hosting a panel with Kalibovich and Manon Mouse on Thursday morning of this week. It's going to be at 8 a.m. Pacific, and we're just going to share our thoughts of the first week of this format and answering any questions we can. So be on the lookout for that. I'm really excited to be doing that. All right, time for everyone's hot takes. What is getting nerfed first? We've seen in the past 2 sets that Direwolf is not shy about nerfing cards. We saw huge merchant nerfs out of set 4, and in this most recent set, in set 5 rather, we saw Zhou getting nerfed, we got Jotun Hurley getting nerfed, more merchant nerfs. Those smugglers were a bit outrageous. So, my question to all of you is, what is getting nerfed? Let's hear from all of you. Camomilk, go ahead.
All right, well, my top pick for what's getting nerfed is probably Reweave, something to do with Reweave, and part of that is because of how you can use Gar with it to silence the whole enemy hand. That may not be the most powerful thing you can do, but it's really a feel bad.
You can definitely do some busted stuff with Reweave. Collector, how about you?
I'm also going to go with Reweave, so...
2 for 2. Linyvine, how do you feel?
So... I don't think they're going to nerf Reweave. I mean, they would have done a lot of testing with that card leading up to its release and creation. If I'm a designer, and while they might make some questionable choices at that time, I don't think that Reweave is as broken people are saying. Now, if it was like, go for your deck for any creature, or a creature that costs 1 more or something, then it would be busted. But I think that as it is, it's perfectly fair and balanced. I don't think that's going to get nerfed. My opinion, if we're going by previous iterations of nerfs when they release cards, is I think that all of the merchants will eventually be stat squished. They don't seem to like to give you fair statted merchants, so I think that for instance the 3/4 3/2 that has Onslaught give you in the unit Aegis will easily be nerfed probably to a 2/2 or a 2/1. That card has been really powerful in play. I think that the same thing will happen to the Stone Scar merchant. It'll probably go from a 3/2 down to a 2/2 or a 2/1 just like that. They really don't want to give you fair merchants ever.
Yeah, I saw the Huru merchant, the Huru smuggler at 3/2, basically giving yourself Aegis and itself Aegis. I was like, really? Did we not learn our lesson from Gen of Merchant the first time?
There is some counter to that. So I think that maybe they did that because they don't want you to play the monocolor merchant. It's very possible that they're just trying to make you play the black merchants, and in the eventuality that they might cycle out or something, do a format rotate.
I don't think that's looking a bit deep into it. I do agree that the smugglers released in this set are very aggressively costed. If there's anything we've seen, it's that the merchants are the merchant effect is very, very powerful, and the merchant bodies have to be statted in order to accommodate that. And we've seen a lot of merchant nerfs. Ilya, I see on the show notes in all caps, I hate Reweave. Let me guess. You think Reweave's getting hit by the Nerf hammer first?
So, some part of the obnoxious turn 3 Sword of the Sky King deck. Again, I'm going to go back to Answer the Call because that was huge, game swingy, hard to interact with, and essentially the whole Reweave Reclaimer thing just does all of this, hits all the same button. Play patterns, hard to interact with, huge swingy effect, high variance game deciding nonsense. It's an atrocity, and in my opinion, and completely despise it. I can't say enough bad about it. I don't know who thought the card was okay. That interaction was okay. There are a lot of other fun things you could do with it, like Winchester Revenge, but just that specific turn 3 Sword of the Sky King interaction is infuriating, and I hope it gets taken out as soon as possible, and I don't care about what collateral damage has to have. I know I've said there's a lot of collateral damage when you nerf certain cards, but in this case, ends justify the means. Nuke that card. I don't ever want to see it in competitive.
See, I understand that you've got a lot of hatred. I actually don't understand it, but I understand that there are some really overpowering aspects of this combo. But as stated, it doesn't win the game by any means. Even if your opponent does nothing, plays no cards, and just draw goes for 4 turns, it's going to take you 4 turns to beat them with that weapon.
If you can't win the game with turn 3 Sword of the Sky King, I'm not sure what to say. Like, you have Justice's removal, you have Argenport's removal. It's turn 3 Sword of the Sky King, unless your opponent is particularly hating on you, like with Vision of Austerity or something. It's the whole aspect of have very specific interaction at very specific points in time. Just rage. Like, how Lightside Ice hates Praxis tokens? I hate the idea of turn 3 Sword of the Sky.
Okay, we need a how-to video from Ilya on how to play this Reclaimer combo deck correctly. I look forward to seeing it, Ilya. Okay, so we have 3 Reweaves and 1 Smugglers stat lines. Gaonan, how do you feel?
So my hot take for a card that's getting nerfed would be the Smugglers. It seems like the stat lines are way too pushed compared to the Smugglers from Defiance, and I had a similar reaction to you of, didn't we learn our lesson last time? I'm wondering if it's because they feel like all this combo nonsense between Reweave and Glimpse the Possibilities are more powerful, that they needed to push the power level of the Smugglers, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense just given their past design decisions. So I would be surprised if the Smugglers stay at the stat lines that they're currently at.
If I may chime in to completely disagree with all the Smuggler nerfs, because here's the thing. These Smugglers, they're created more for aggressive strategies, and aggressive strategies these days, they can't just play fair, go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, burn spell, win. The game's moved on.
But didn't you spend last week talking about how the aggressive strategies were getting hit because the merchants were so good? So, I don't think it's the merchants that are holding the aggressive decks back, because the control decks are going to use merchants as well, and I think that they use the merchant effect more efficiently.
Well, if you look at Rhyme Conclave Smuggler, which is the Huru one, Onslaught, you get an Aegis, and he gets an Aegis. A control deck has a lot harder time actually getting that attack in to activate his Aegis, while something like a Blitz deck can go turn 2 Hojin, attack you, 3-2 Aegis, and I get an Aegis, so your first Equivocate, doesn't really matter.
That's fair. Charge and the Onslaught do make it more difficult for control decks to use this. Okay, so my pick is not actually Reweave. I do think that deck has potential to be a problem, but I think that Auric Reclaimer is the card that should be hit. So, one of you brought up that you can do some really fun things with Reweave. I think that going crazy with Alessi and Crown Watch Presking with Reweave is a cool thing to do and not terribly oppressive. Well, at least I don't think so yet. I could be totally wrong. But I think that those are the things that they want to have happen with Reweave. They don't want 8/8 Sword of the Sky Kings on turn 3 with Reweave. So I think that if you make Auric Reclaimer cost, you probably want its base cost to be 4 and maybe give it better stats. I think that's fine. Just so that you can't Remembrance or Reweave it to get the combo off quite so quickly. I think that would slow down the combo enough so that
I think that would kill the combo. Because if you
good.
Yeah, no, I know, IlyaK. We all know your opinions on it, but I think that it doesn't need to be deleted. I mean, if you delete that, just go ahead and delete Reanimator too. That actually just go away forever, because who wants that? I mean, that is I win the game if I go off. If you don't stop me, I am going to win. There's nothing you can do at that point. This deck does not win the game. Yeah, but it does not win the game. That you play an 8/8 weapon, congratulations. You do not win the game.
Yeah,
especially with so many Aegis units in the format, so your removal doesn't do anything. You go turn 3 8/8 weapon, they go turn 3 3/2 Aegis creature, and you can't kill it. Yeah, you're gonna have to tack into it and giving them and most likely if they're playing that, they're then going for vision to kill your thing. So now all of a sudden I can't possibly win the game until turn 8, turn 9. So I mean, it's not it's very, very fair. There is nothing about this deck that needs to be touched.
So do me this little thought experiment. What percentage of the games do you lose with a turn 3 Sword of the Sky? Just in your estimation.
Probably about half.
That does not sound like a good combo deck. If you lose half the decks, half the times that you go off.
What I'm saying is it's not oppressive. That's the point. You're exactly right.
Well,
it is not oppressive. It's very fair.
We'll see how this pans out. In any case, I think that they could make Orc Reclaimer cost more so that the combo is more difficult to pull off, and you can still do fun stuff with Reweave, which I think is a cool, interesting part of the game. It's very possible that there could be busted things with Reweave that we haven't discovered yet, or that come up later on in the format, but I think that Reweave isn't the problem. I think that Orc Reclaimer costing 2 and then having the shift effect is more the problem.
I think there's actually a better way to nerf that card without killing the deck. I think that what they could do is they could just make the weapon that he gives you some static amount of stats. So make it like it gives you a 6/6 relic weapon or something like that. It's not nearly as suppressive as an 8/8 relic weapon, but it still does what it needs to do. If you just making it cost 4 doesn't balance. It kills it. It's gone forever. It's never coming back. I don't think
not necessarily. You could haunt it, but in any case,
how much does the relic cost?
Sorry,
how much does the relic make cost? Like, we'll banish it.
It costs 4. Yeah, you can banish it.
Yep, that's true.
All right. There you go. In any case, if you would like to hear us argue about this more, feel free to join the Friends of Eternal Discord. There's plenty of this talk available all the time, 24/7. We are constantly talking about these. Alright, that is pretty much a wrap for this show. Thanks everyone for joining me on a Saturday morning to put this together. It's great having so many people on, and we'll definitely be doing some more of these panel type shows in the future when big events happen. So, any of you guys have anything you would like to plug before we wrap it up?
Keep an eye on that Friends of Eternal Twitch channel. I'm hoping to join in on that and do a little streaming there.
Exactly. That's what I'd say. Just make sure everyone keeps an eye out on the Friends of Eternal Twitch channel. All of us will have at some point probably be able to stream on there. So just keep an eye out. And of course, there's Sunyveil stream, who's always pushing Friends of Eternal and our.
All right, Collector. Anything you want to plug?
This upcoming weekend, IlyaK's going to be doing a charity stream for Doctors Without Borders. If you want to tune in, it will be his channel is twitch.tv/IlyaK_, and you can see it there.
What about you, gaonan?
I'd also like to plug my YouTube channel. I provide a variety of draft content there, most of which is focused on my solo drafts, climbing the Masters every month to show people that it's possible and that even players that make it there consistently have struggles too. I also do drafting with Masters, which is a co-drafting series where I bring other personalities onto the show from the Eternal community. I've had Sunny on, among others, in the past. And then I've also got a Coaching Towards Masters series, which takes a peek at the paid coaching session I do with other Eternal players to help them reach their ultimate goal of hitting Master Draft.
And this series is great. I strongly recommend it because, I mean, you just record every draft. I mean, I draft a lot, but I don't necessarily record all of them. You record a ton of drafts every week, and I think that's really valuable to show people how each draft goes, because no two drafts are the same. So, you know, a small sample size of drafts doesn't even really tell the whole story, and I feel like you get that a lot more in your videos here.
Thanks, yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, and be sure to keep an eye out for the Friends of Eternal Twitch channel. I did the first stream on Thursday. I plan on streaming on it once a week, and I'm really excited to see who will join the channel and share their content with the other Friends of Eternal. I think I'm really excited about this. This is something that I've been hoping to get started for a while, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. As I mentioned earlier, I will be hosting a panel with Caleb and Man and Mouse on Thursday morning, talking all about the draft format, our experiences with the format, our initial impressions, what we think. And any questions you have for us, let one of us know so that I can put it in the outline and we can discuss it. This is another thing that I've wanted to do for a while and finally have the opportunity to, so I'm really looking forward to it, and so should you. One last thing, we have the first Master Showdown next week. That is going to be constructed, right? It is constructed?
No, that one's limited.
That one's
First one's
limited?
limited this upcoming weekend.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so they're testing this week, and then the actual hope everything goes well, cross your fingers, is next weekend.
Wow, there was no room for error there. Oh my. Okay, so I stand corrected. We have a Master Showdown next week, and it's going to be limited. So get in your reps with Dark Frontier Limited now so that you are prepared for that tournament if you're qualified. That should be a blast. Seeing the synchronous draft, I think, is going to be amazing, and I am super excited. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you all 5 of you for joining me on the Saturday morning again to do this show with me. Be sure to check us out next week where we'll be talking about the results of these limited tournaments. And until then, we will see you in the Friend Zone. Friends of Eternal is an inclusive community-based team dedicated to self-improvement and helping others do the same. We accept all newcomers to our ranks, so if the team environment appeals to you or if you just think we're cool and want to hang out with us, we're happy to have you. All you have to do is go to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Sunyveil, and type in !FE, and there you will find more information on how to join the Discord and be a fully fledged member of the team. Thanks again so much for listening, and until next time, we will see you in the Friend Zone.